this panel, bringing us together to discuss this very, very important topic. Just as an aside, I revere Dr. Samuel Banks, as I know you do, because you named this very august body in his honor, and I want to thank you for that. He doesn't get enough credit for what he brought to the city and to history and culture. Great Blacks and Wax owes an enormous debt to Dr. Banks, because he saw to it that the teachers from the social work the social work department within the in the public schools, in the sociology and social studies. I'm sorry, that's the word I was grappling for. Social studies department within the public schools, Baltimore City Public Schools, that they were required to come to our museum at least twice a year for some kind of professional development. He was an amazing man who used very, very big words, if you remember Dr. Banks, but a wonderful man. In terms of what the Emancipation Proclamation did not do, as Diane, as Dr. Swann-Wright indicated, it did not apply to the 800,000 slaves held in the 4 border states. She mentioned Maryland and Delaware, also Kentucky and Missouri. 800,000 slaves held in those slave states. It also did not apply to states under Union control. The Union Army had captured certain parts of those states, as it had West Virginia, which was a part of the state of Virginia at that time. Then the Emancipation Proclamation did not free the people there. So portions of Tennessee that was under Union control, Louisiana and Virginia, specifically West Virginia, it did not apply to the slaves there. It also did not keep the promise of Frederick Douglass. With his negotiations and discussions with Abraham Lincoln, a fact that you never would have had an inkling of in the movie Lincoln, that Frederick Douglass even knew that there was a Frederick Douglass. As a matter of fact, you would have known from the movie. But Frederick Douglass had argued with Abraham Lincoln about having black men participate in the Civil War, and that idea had been rejected. But with the Emancipation Proclamation, and as the Union found that this war wasn't going to be as easily won as both the Southern men, the men of the Confederacy, and the men of the Union thought when they went off, and it was, they were going to have a lark and fight a little bit and come home, drink a lot, and come home, and everything was going to be over. And it was the bloodiest war of its time, and for a long time in our history, the bloodiest war in our history. But with the Emancipation Proclamation, Frederick Douglass made a call. He wrote an editorial in his paper, Men of Color to Arms, and calling on and encouraging black soldiers to enlist. And Douglass told them that, as Lincoln had promised, that I am authorized to assure you that you will receive the same wages, the same rations, the same equipment, the same treatment, and the same bounty secured to white soldiers. That was not the case. Someone mentioned before we started, Francine mentioned the movie Glory, and they talked a great deal about the inequity in pay and so forth. So Frederick Douglass was deceived in this. They certainly didn't receive, the black soldiers certainly didn't receive the same treatment as whites. Their pay was less, their equipment was inferior, and they were forced to serve in segregated units. They were called on to do the menial labor, so digging ditches and building bridges and so forth. So in essence, they were forced to fight on 2 fronts. They had to fight the Confederacy that sought to enslave them and keep them enslaved, and their fellow Union soldiers who viewed them as inferior, or tried to make the case that they were inferior, that they were too cowardly and too dull-witted for the battlefield.